Welcome to the session. We have Robin Sutherland Harris and Yusin Young, who are from York University in Canada. And their presentation is entitled Rough Waters. I like that. Curriculum Renewal Process and Positionality in Equitable Higher Education Practice. So it sounds really interesting. So this is a presentation of 30 minutes. Can you two actually see the chat bar on the side of your screen? So if anyone who's participating would like to put questions in during the session, we'll be monitoring that, and we can either address them at the end, or if you want to address a question directly as it comes up, feel free. Okay, so over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. I can't see how many people are here, but welcome. Hello, thank you. We are presenting some work in progress that we're engaged with, and we'll talk a bit about the context, the framework, sort of where we're at with the data analysis of this research project that really focuses on the process of curriculum renewal from the perspectives of those of us who do the work at the departmental level. So I'm Robin Sutherland Harris. I am an educational developer at York University, but I also have a contract as an educational development consultant at the Department of Physical Therapy at the University of Toronto. And that's kind of the hat that I'm wearing for this presentation with Eason. Eason, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Okay, hi, I'm Eason Young, and I am, along with Robin Sutherland Harris, in the Department of Physical Therapy, and I teach in the physical therapy program. We'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Great, thank you. So we'd really like to open this presentation with the quote from our research process that gave us our title. This statement was made by a faculty member who's one of our research team on this project, describing her own experience of working and teaching through this multi-year period of curriculum redesign, renewal, and implementation that we've all experienced. So during this period, she was explicitly and kind of formally engaged in the process in different ways and at different times, though I think it's worth noting that her position in the department is not tenure track. And she described her experience as follows. You didn't know when it was going to end. It was just tumultuous, where it just felt you were up and down all the time, just trying to get through and survive something that was in some ways beating down on you, that you had a due date, you had to get stuff done, but you just didn't know how you were going to get through it. At the time, it just felt very rough. It felt like being in rough waters. So that's what gave us our quote. It's a bit of a bleak description, but we like it because we felt that it really powerfully encapsulates the heart of what we're trying to capture in this study, which is the lived, experiential, and effective aspects of curriculum renewal for those of us who do that work, and their implications in terms of building equitable and inclusive processes in search of equitable and inclusive curricula. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the context and conditions of this project. In terms of the departmental context, so this is the Department of Physical Therapy at the University of Toronto, so broadly speaking, a health sciences context. The only program in this department is a 2-year master's level professional program, which is taught using a really intensive modular structure with significant clinical practicum components, rather than a traditional semestered course kind of structure. The department has really close ties as a result of this with the clinical and professional communities, as well as with the research community. The curriculum itself that was under renewal was the curriculum of this 2-year master's program. And the renewal process kind of spanned about 3 years, depending on how you want to bookend that time period. And it was really a significant revisioning of the program. It was much deeper and more robust than you might see in a typical cyclical program review or quality assurance process. And this renewal process was kind of instigated or spurred by some feedback from the physical therapy community about some of the strengths and weaknesses of graduates coming out of the program, as well as just generally changes in PT practice and context over time. This renewal process really fell into two broad phases, design and implementation. The overall design process was guided by materials from the University of Toronto's Teaching and Learning Centre, including a very nice and tidy kind of diagram of the renewal process as an iterative cycle, with like color arrows going in a nice little circle. And in fact, it was the disjunction between the like tidy order of this diagram and the process as we actually experienced it on the ground that first planted the seed of this research project. The redesigned curriculum at the end of that process really now attempts to support and develop students in three key areas: critical thinking, inquiry mindset, and professionalism. So when we got to the part of the implementation phase of this curriculum renewal process, a lot of what we were doing was looking at different ways to support instructors within the department to realize these quite broad, lofty pillars as really engaging and meaningful classroom practice. In terms of the research that we're kind of grappling with here, this is our overarching research question. Really, what are the experience of those of us who participate at the departmental level in curricular development or redesign processes? And this main overarching question is informed or supported or bothered perhaps by some sub questions as well around things like, what is it that drives curriculum redevelopment and renewal? What are the sort of factors that promote and stall this curricular redevelopment process, and why? Who are the key players and influencers of decision making in these processes? And what are the deeper implications in terms of what does it mean when participants have these experiences in curriculum redesign and development? What are the implications of that? And then just a quick word, I'll say a little bit more in a second, about our sort of contributors to this research. It's not just Ethan and myself. We also have 4 other folks who are engaged in this research process as authors and researchers with us. And we're not exclusively drawn from the leadership of the curriculum renewal process, nor are we, as this project, in any way part of the planned evaluation kind of mechanism of the new curriculum. Rather, it's really, we came together as a research team to represent and capture a range of perspectives on the process as we experienced it. So just a quick kind of word a little bit more about us. So you can see, in addition to myself and Eason, we've got 4 other folks here in the department representing a range of perspectives and approaches. So we have myself as an educational developer, we have tenure track faculty, we have departmental administration, we have clinical lecturers, placement supervisors, and we also have part-time faculty teaching on a contract basis, the assistant professors who might in other institutions or contexts be called sessionals or lecturers. And all of us were brought into this curriculum renewal process at various points. Some were present right from the outset, and some arrived on the scene kind of a bit later in the game. And we played different and overlapping roles as well. So from consultation to leadership to implementation to administrative support to just rolling out the new curriculum in the classroom setting to like making it work on the ground. And we also all have really different backgrounds. So as clinical experts, as pedagogical experts, as research experts, et cetera, and also along lines of gender, race, age, and so on. So I just wanted to make sure that we really captured that, because there are some sort of connections there with what we're going to say about the rest of the project here. So I'm going to quickly go through a little overview of our methodology and theory that informs how we're tackling this research. So this is a gross oversimplification. This is a graphic, but basically we're looking at a collaborative analytical autoethnography as our methods, informed by interpretive phenomenology, with the result that positionality is really kind of inevitable when you combine these two things in terms of how we're understanding our research. So I'll say a little bit more about each of these things so that it's not quite so unintelligibly sweeping. So our methodology of collaborative analytical autoethnography is really, we engaged in a series of iterative cycles of doing some reflecting on a prompt, writing individually, reading each other's writing, having discussions about what we had read from each other, and then drawing from that another prompt, and then kind of going through that cycle in a repeated way. And that served as our data generation process. And the topic of all of that reading and writing was like, what was this process of curriculum renewal like? What were our experiences, and so on. And so the data that was generated by that then became the subject of the thematic qualitative analysis that we undertook, and put that into conversation with the larger scholarly kind of body of research on this. Underlying this methodology is a theoretical standpoint that's informed by phenomenology, specifically the interpretive branch of that theory, which really supports this idea of us taking our experiences and reflections on experience in curriculum renewal as the object of our study. And here, I think that emphasis on intersubjectivity, that's kind of key to Heidegger's approach to this, is really ideally suited to the context that we're studying and the types of questions that we're looking to answer, which see us as always as beings in context. So basically, the ways in which we exist in relation to the world are critically important in shaping our understanding of it. And finally, we really want to acknowledge the important influence of phenomenological thinkers who have been instrumental in bringing this theory into the professional and social sciences, such as Max van Menen, and his emphasis really specifically on writing as a part of this research framework, that writing as something that really supports, that shapes and influences interpretation, is significant for our work with this kind of iterative cycles of writing and so on that we've built into our process. And the combination of this particular approach, so this collaborative analytical autoethnographic methodology underpinned by interpretive phenomenology, really what it really boils down to is it means that our own positionality as researchers and authors comes to the fore in this project. And in the process of analyzing our data, it has really seemed at times that our respective positionalities are just kind of inexorably rising to the surface. So we have found that truly understanding our data has meant identifying and acknowledging how gender, race, education, status, role, etc., have been at play for each of us in different ways within this context of curriculum renewal. And we believe that articulating our positionalities as researchers and authors, as I really briefly did kind of collectively for us earlier when introducing the team, is essential to being able to address what our research questions are getting at in meaningful ways. So this is a bit of a whirlwind tour, many of these methodological and theoretical threads also make appearances in our data analysis, which Ethan is now going to take us through a little bit more.
Thank you, Robin. So as you can imagine, we poured through a lot of data, so both the written text as well as the transcripts of our discussions together. And so in our data, we really saw how agency was expressed and in some cases limited through how we describe ourselves and our experiences, specifically our relationship to the Department of Physical Therapy, in which this program, this curriculum is housed, and also the university. So data about our sense of agency was described in circumstances where we felt we had a sense of control over actions and their consequences in this renewal process, like feeling like we could potentially have bring about some change. Overall, I think we all spoke about the process as mostly meaningful because of its impact on each of our respective social locations. But at the same, as I mentioned earlier, there was also a sense that our relationship to and within the department and the university sometimes actually limited our sense of agency. So if we go to the next slide, more specifically, These tensions emerged in relation to really two key themes. So first is what we call push and pull factors. So that was about the broader systemic factors that shape the curriculum renewal process for each of us. And then secondly, labor and role delineations. And this was the ways in which these systemic factors played out in our individual work and roles. And so I'll talk about each one of these individually. So next slide. So what we call push and pull factors. With respect to this one, this theme, these data were really about the observations of the things happening around us. So first is structures and hierarchies. And yeah, there we go. Structures and hierarchies, and they appear to persist within the department, also outside of the department. And these really had a strong bearing on our experiences with the curriculum renewal process. We all spoke in different ways about how there exists a division between faculty and clinicians. You heard Robin talk about how clinicians were a really big part of supporting the delivery of our program. And that really led us to think about ourselves as insiders and outsiders. Those terms are actually used, insiders and outsiders, in our conversations. We also described the distinction between teaching and research faculty and the resource implications stemming from this kind of distinction. And this quote here